Concluded, I put a Pebblebee Tracker and an Apple AirTag in a box and mailed it to another state as a side-by-side test. Here are the results. I'm going to paste the text from my original post that I made when I started this experiment. I updated it as it went along, but figured that a new post would be necessary to reach people interested who did not come back to the original post for updates. Asterisk TLDR, Pebblebee and the Google Find My Device network are hot garbage, and the entire thing has not been rolled out in a way that it can be useful, reliable, or worth spending your money on at this time. Original post. I did a local test around town today to see if our newly arrived Pebblebee trackers would work well. Unfortunately, they failed miserably and were never found, even after a few hours. Yes, they are functioning correctly. Anyway, as a test, I put the new PB tracker and an AirTag in a box and we'll see what happens. Update 1 July 3rd after the postal worker picked it up. It took almost 11 hours before pinging to a new location. The Apple AirTag worked great the whole time and kept giving me accurate updates throughout the day, but it was crickets for the PB. Even when the box was at the local post office where more phones should have been gathered, there was nothing from it. The AirTag updated on the roads, both in the postal carrier truck and also the semi that hauled it from my local city to a major city sorting hub. That PB didn't find a single Android soul to connect to the entire time. Finally, 11 hours later, it updated its location when it reached a large USPS sorting warehouse outside of a big city. This was the parcel's second large hub stop. Since then, it hasn't shown any update, but I'll continue tracking it in the Apple AirTag tomorrow to follow it on the journey and return here to provide more edit updates to the post. Update 2 July 4th as of this morning. The Apple AirTag continues to update and show the parcel has stayed at the large sorting center overnight. The PB, on the other hand, has managed to get worse. It no longer shows its one and only updated position from last night at that sorting center. It now resorts back to its original position of being at my house before the postal worker picked up the package. When I ask it to update, it just spins for a moment and continues to say it was last seen at my home. Somehow, it completely lost that one movement update that happened 11 hours after leaving. The PB finally pinged back at the sorting warehouse today late in the afternoon. It was the one and only update it has given so far today. One thing I'm noticing that is super unhelpful is the fact that the Find My Device map display is not in satellite mode. It's just a grayscale map. The Apple map is super detailed satellite mode, and that makes pinpointing a location much easier. I don't expect any movement from the parcel today since it's a federal holiday, so I likely won't have anything to add until tomorrow. Update 3 July 5th I checked a few more times today. The Pebblebee is still reverting back to my home from July 3rd. Apple Tag still working great as usual. My parcel is in a border state now, preparing for delivery tomorrow. The family member receiving it will mail it right back, and that will allow extended testing. Again, the Apple Tag updated going down the highway the entire time. The Pebblebee. Nothing. Update 4 July 6th the parcel has reached its destination. After the Apple AirTag showed me it had reached a sorting warehouse about 30 minutes north of the final destination yesterday, I was able to track it this morning as it headed down the interstate to the final stop town. All this time, the Pebblebee was showing me its original location of my home on July 3rd. It was no longer even showing me its last known location that I had seen it update from when at a sorting center in my current home state. The parcel will now be mailed back to me, which will allow more opportunities to see how the tracking will go, but I feel safe at concluding it from the one-way trip it just made. Conclusion. It goes without saying that the Apple AirTag worked wonderfully. Not only did it give me regular updates at post offices and postal sorting centers, it would even regularly update going down the road in the truck it was being carried in. So yes, the AirTag is wonderful, and that's why we maintain one Apple device so that we can utilize this technology in our suitcases for travel and a few other various things we track. The Pebblebee and Google Find My Device network is, at this point in time, a complete failure. I don't think I'll send the Pebblebee trackers back, as I'd like to see how this goes in the future. Plus, we'll be traveling to another country soon that has a 78% market share of Android and only 21.5% market share of Apple. I'm especially interested in how that works out. Probably the most disappointing thing about the Pebblebee was that despite it giving me just a few updates along the way when it was in large sorting warehouses, it quickly forgot these data points and would revert to its starting location of my home back on the day that I mailed the parcel. This is not helpful whatsoever. It was confirmed in other places at least twice, but instead of keeping that log, it just forgets it. I also noted above that when pulling up the Find My Device page in a web browser on the computer and not on the app, the Pebblebee devices were not present. Why is this? What if you lose your phone and need to track these things in a browser on the computer? You're just out of luck? I can't advise buying into the Android trackers at this time. I certainly won't put any more money into this product anytime soon. It's a pain to have to carry around an iPad mini when we travel to utilize the superior Apple AirTags, but it is what it is. We are a household that only uses Pixel phones and for some various reasons, can't switch over to iPhone at this point in time. Oddly enough, this tracker thing is somewhat of an important piece of tech with the travel we do and our desire to track items when abroad. But again, we'll stick with Apple for that task for the foreseeable future. Blows my mind that the Google network is opt-in, the Apple network is opt-out, so it's massive by default. More importantly, the Apple network is all or nothing, where if you disable being part of their network, which is only one level equivalent to Google's top level, you disable being able to find that device itself. I believe on Google's network you can use it to find stuff without contributing. That is incorrect or poorly worded. If your iPhone declines to participate in the Find My network, you won't be able to find your iPhone when it's powered off, but you can still find your iPhone through an active internet connection, powered on, connected. Basically, if you want the benefits of being in the Find My network, you have to contribute. Otherwise, you only get your own resources. That's how it should be. Opt out if you want. If you do, then you go alone. It really shouldn't. It is first a thing you have to choose yourself, not the company in question. Also, what if I don't have any trackers or objects? And what if I don't care if I all-nines in my phone? It is also an invasion of privacy. If Google defaulted it to on, there would be international headlines about how Google turned every Android phone into an evil spying device that everyone needs to turn off ASAP. Greater than if Google defaulted it to on, there would be international headlines about how Google turned every Android phone into an evil spying device that everyone needs to turn off ASAP, and, of course, Apple gets a pass for all of the things that Google would be pilloried for. There was a huge fucking uproar when AirTags first came out. Is Apple responsible for stalkers murdering their victims? Was commonly in the news. I wouldn't call it an uproar. Apple wasn't even persuaded into providing privacy tools for anyone that didn't buy their products. They just made an app that can manually scan for AirTags if you were worried and called it a day. I literally cannot see a scenario where Google introduces a network of physical trackers, refuses to provide tools for iPhone users to protect themselves, and still the product wins out over the privacy concerns. And I think a big indicator behind this is the fact that this implies releasing a competitor required a privacy strategy that wasn't even practical. Although Samsung didn't receive much attention, so this is all an assumption. Google gets away with worse all the time. My Pixel 6 couldn't call 911. Right now I probably can't reset it without breaking it.
Classic R Android comment. Apple was literally put on a cross and crucified for this. It was the #1 news story on all outlets. People scared shitless stalkers were going to place it in their car. It was so bad half my family still refuses to use one. https www.forbes.com/sites/catephlier-tx/2021/05/22/apple-airtags-what-all-iphone-users-should-know/ https www.thegardien.com/technology/2022/sep/05/I didn't want-it-any-where-near-me-apple-AirTag-B came a gift to stalker.
https://abcnews.go.com/apple-airtags-causing-major-security-concerns-reports-stalking/story?it =965318711 It got so bad Apple issued a very rare statement admitting they fucked up and were pushing a way to identify malicious AirTags. https://www.apple.com/newsroom/2022/02/and-update-on-AirTag-and-unwanted-tracking/greater than. But they didn't push that find AirTag ability automatically to Android devices. Yeah, but you also can't track somebody on an Android phone with an AirTag. Sure, it will ping nearby iPhones, but after a day, your family, friends are going to start getting notifications on their iPhones about the unknown AirTag. It's literally the best that they could do, not being able to directly integrate with an Android source code. In all fairness, this was a major oversight on Apple's part. The entire reason there is an unknown tag is on you notification is because Apple released it without thinking or caring about it being a threat. Would Google have released it ahead of time either? Probably not. But I think it's safe to say that uproar was because of something slightly different than this would be. They also added a big delay to the real-time tracking and limited the amount of times you could ping for the location of an AirTag. Also, if you ping an AirTag too many times, the network will be more aggressive with notifying people in the area that an AirTag is being located near them. Apple had a shit ton of stuff to clean up. I wouldn't say they get a free pass. They literally had to make changes to the tech to satisfy the angry mob after a few months of the tech being out. The difference is I think Apple users are used to Apple sound shiesty things like having ultimatum features such as this. Remove. Leave it to Reddit to shoehorn politics into every discussion. A discussion involves people. People are involved with current events. Why whine? Although I do appreciate you illustrating my point. It really wasn't necessary. All that reaching can't be good for your back. Remove. I wouldn't put it in such a rude way, but yes, my point exactly. So given the agreed status of off-topic comments as an expected happening, why whine about it? Everybody else kept scrolling, but you had to bitch about a human being human. Greater than everybody else kept scrolling, but you had to bitch signed. The guy that could have kept on scrolling but stopped to bitch. So close to self-awareness, and yet so far. Oh, I'm just fucking around with you now while I do some work. The question was posed in my first reply, the one you haven't answered. In the same way that people will speak off topic because they're just people, others will complain about it. Funnily enough, you're just like they are. They brought up politics. And you brought up whining. Greater than the question was posed in my first reply, the one you haven't answered. Very observant of you. I have no interest in taking your nonsense seriously. But they're already evil spying devices that everyone needs to turn off ASAP. Fighting evil using evil, because that's what it is. Apple is the evil bastard here. Deleted. With the latest updates to Google Maps, your phone's location history is now stored purely on your phone. Kind of annoying because I actually wanted my last 2 years of location history synced across devices. Now over the next few months, people will get prompted to migrate the data locally. It's not opt-in. I don't understand why people keep saying that. By default, it's with network in high traffic areas. It's weird. My phone automatically joined the network and just notified me that I could turn it off. But my tablet did the opposite. Notified me that I could turn it on. A fake. The app doesn't do anything if you don't open it and don't log in, either with your account or as a guest. Unless I'm wrong about that. That sounds an awful lot as opt-in to me. The tracking part of the Find My Device network is part of services, not the app. You don't need the app. If you search for Find My in the settings, you will see it. Even if you don't have the app. And the opt-in process is slow and cumbersome. Google is trying to balance efficacy with privacy to avoid the class action privacy lawsuit that Apple is now dealing with. https://www.cnet.com/tech/mobile/apple-sued-over-everything-you-need-to-no/. That's like Google selling blunt knives because someone might get cut and sue them. It doesn't matter if the product is safe or if it just doesn't work. If that was the concern, then they should have just scrapped the entire project. You can't stalk anyone on our network because it hardly works at all. So, difference is the Android hardware ecosystem is fragmented. iOS, Apple's is not. It is a lot easier to connect 1 billion iPhones running iOS than it is connecting 5 different phones from 5 different phone makers running Android. Software isn't as fragmented as you say. This is a Google Play Services update. You don't need special hardware to get a basic function of the Find My Device network to use unless you need the UWB. The FMD network IRC is compatible with devices running Android 9 or newer and is delivered via the Play Store. Not an OS fragmentation issue at all. Yet when it comes to RCS and Google Messages, this isn't a problem anymore. I think the main issue is that Samsung, the largest Android OEM in the US, has a competing tracker product ecosystem. I don't know if you remember, Samsung did also try their own RCS implementation for a while that was pretty fragmented with carriers. But they eventually gave up and adopted Google's Messages app. Not a problem since the Samsung phones work with Google's tracker network too. Samsung's phones are probably the majority of the network anyway. So it's not like they're getting great returns for helping competing products. They still have the Samsung SMS app and it has RCS but using Google's protocol. Yet it took years to make that happen. Maybe the Find My network is something the EU anti-competition investigators will be looking at next? I'm certain it's just the first baby step, and by design. Apple took a big hit to their privacy image by releasing their network on the world early. Android, having a larger share worldwide, has more to lose, especially with the privacy political policy in some of the markets it dominates. The OS can't afford to take the hit Apple took. I think it's the right choice by Google. Slow rollout to devices, and over time reduce the network participation options down to what Apple has. At that point, with all else equal, it'll be the stronger network by default. I don't know how releasing a product that doesn't work is the right choice by Google. They have a reputation for half-assing products and killing them off. If it's bad, I'm not going to buy it now. And I'm not going to check up on it every 6 months to see if it's gotten better. Just seems like a guaranteed DOA product. It's not a pleasant choice to make, but I think it's the right one. Apple had a full year or more of negative press and headlines of people being stalked, children abducted, women followed leaving bars, influencers being doxxed, etc., all because of the rushed release of AirTags. It's a great product, don't get me wrong, but they took a hit to their brand and admitted such. Android literally cannot afford to make the same mistake in some of its markets. India, for instance. Politicians overreact. If the same thing happened there, Android and Google would be on the losing end of one of the world's largest markets. I don't believe this is a case of them releasing a half-baked product or cutting something off before its time. I think it's a calculated approach to a system that needs a calculated approach. They're just learning from the mistakes of others. The system costs them very little to run, for a massive upside, so I also don't see it doing the way of other Google products that do. I don't see how releasing the product in a useless state is a good idea, period. If they haven't figured any of that out by now, I don't see how frustrated customers are going to make it better. The world is already used to the idea of AirTags. Google wouldn't get negative press for the same thing. Did Samsung? And Apple should be sued for it. It's unreasonable to force every user by default to participate in a spy network. Google making the default mode high traffic areas only is incredibly stupid. Just completely handicaps the effectiveness of the network. I live in a semi-rural area. This setting has basically meant that I'll never get a hit. Even though tons of walkers pass by, they're mostly solo, so would never meet the criteria to report my tag locations. Canceled my order. I do appreciate the choice though. But you're right, it needs to have the default be with network everywhere.
Google is trying to balance efficacy with privacy to avoid the class action privacy lawsuit that Apple is now dealing with. https www.cnet.com/tech/mobile/apple-sued-over-everything-you-need-to-know/ https www.cnet.com/tech/mobile/apple-sued-over-everything-you-need-to-know/
Good write-up. I'm wondering how Samsung smart tags would have fared, as I've heard they're pretty good and comparable to AirTags in terms of reliability and update frequency. I use one, and it's super good. The network is as good as Apple, if not better. You can almost track every movement with smart tags. Samsung has the plus that appliances, TV, wireless charger, fridge, have SmartThings Find built in. Hopefully they will do something like Amazon, Tile, and say your tracker is near TV or something. On the 2 countries I lived in, the Apple tags are quite bad due to the small network. We can't afford iPhones. On the other hand, the smart tags simply work perfectly since everyone and their moms have Galaxy phones, as they have a wide price range, so it's the most popular device series around. Exactly, because the test was concluded in the US. Of course, Android's Find My is trash cause everyone despises Androids. Go in another country, or another continent, like anywhere in Europe, and you shall see comparable results to Apple, even better in poorly developed countries, Moldova, Albania, most Balkan countries, India, and SE Asia. Usually it's because wages are small, but the importing tax, the tax as a whole, and the inflation make iPhones really expensive. For example, the newest iPhone, May 15, launched at $800 base price. Guess what? In my country, the bare minimum you would find it was at $1,000. That's why most people opt for Samsungs and Xiaomis and Androids as a whole. The issue is that it requires 3 phones to be near the device at the same time for it to report back. So this makes it useless unless it's in a very busy area. Everyone in my family in Albania has an iPhone, mostly retired teachers. And when I was there just last month, I couldn't find anyone without an iPhone. They looked at me weird for having something different. That's been the case for the last 3 times I visited, all 2 to 3 years apart. I haven't been happy with mine, but maybe it's due to my location and expectations. I put one in a plastic bag, marked it as lost, and hid it in my neighborhood for a few days, and it never pinged me. People walked the area. It would have been in range of people driving, but nothing. Being in a suburban environment, I expected a ping in a day or 2, but nope. Funny enough, I'd accidentally left a Samsung Smart Tag in a car I was having shipped a while back. I got an amusing amount of updates as it traveled a few thousand miles. Obviously, don't stalk the shipping industry, but the tags themselves have been pretty competent in my experience, although I usually rely on Tile. Yeah, Samsung Tag versus AirTag would have been a more fair comparison, Emo. I'd never even heard of Pebblebee before this post. I don't think they have anywhere near the same network as Smart Tags or AirTags. Pebblebee uses a new network managed by Google. There are 2 problems. 1. It hasn't rolled out to a ton of people yet. 2. For the people it has rolled out to, it defaults to only sharing location data if there are a bunch of other devices around too. So if your tag isn't in a densely populated area, it's going to be pretty useless. Slow rollout plus intentionally crippling it equals poor performance. IRC, it requires 3 devices to ping the tracker or device being tracked before its location is logged and set DTU. This is wild. I live in a non-urban area. The odds of 3 people who all use Android being near my lost keys at the same time is, well, it just won't happen. However, we do get tons of solo dog walkers and cyclists. Samsung, Apple tags would be found reliably. Google's tags simply would never reach the threshold to fire. I'm not sure they have to connect all at the same time, perhaps in a certain time frame like 3 confirmations within 30 minutes or something. I'm just speculating though, as Google hasn't released this information. Either way, it is negatively affecting the performance of the network. Yeah, even that would make it almost impossible to find a lost pet, for example. I've canceled my Pebblebee order. If this is only useful for finding things within Bluetooth range of my phone, I'll just get some of those whistle key finder things for $1. There's an option to allow your phone to report a tracker location even if it's the only device in the area, but it's opt-in. So you'd be able to find your device if you're near it. But that's why the network is so ineffective compared to the competitors. I personally switched my phone to in all areas. I really want Google's network to be able to compete. That's just dumb. Also, the way they rolled this out, got users to opt in, seems a mess. Would love a similar comparison like this, but also versus Tile and Samsung trackers. It seems like the opt-in is for people who never even activated Find My Device. Because for all 3 of my devices, it automatically enabled. I think Google should have released the network before releasing trackers to have the full rollout complete before people should rely on it for finding their items. The network was announced more than a year ago, quickly after you could place pre-orders. Then Google waited for Apple to finally agree to and implement a standard to warn about foreign trackers following you, stalking protection, which took until this year. So naturally the trackers are already available for sale a year after the release of the technical details, although the network is not as strong as it should be yet. Although this kind of sucks for the tracker users, it's still somehow a nice move of Google to care about privacy once. Pebblebee has been around, and they do have a tracking network, but that's what this post was using. Testing. They, like a few other companies, Chipolo, Motorola, and Anker, to name those Inc. out of right now, are releasing devices that use Google's Find My network. The idea is the same as Apple AirTags, where the device brand shouldn't matter in terms of tracking, since any Android device can report the location. It's all native. The reason I think everyone suspects things aren't working well right now is that the ability for Android devices to report these tags is something that doesn't appear to have been turned on across all devices yet. Once it does, I'd suspect this will be a non-issue. Of course, there may be other issues, as evident by the tracker going back to a previously reported location. But I'm still reasonably confident that once the initial bugs are ironed out, this will be a great option for many. Google's Find My network, in its current form, is very new still. Pebblebee has been around, and they do have a tracking network, but that's what this post was using. Testing. He said he was using the Find My Device network. I know that's what Op is using. I was responding to the comment from Ye better drink miserably and piss, as it looked like there was some confusion there. Yeah, Samsung Tag versus AirTag would have been a more fair comparison, emo. I'd never even heard of Pebblebee before this post. I don't think they have anywhere near the same network as smart tags or AirTags. Sorry. The issue is that the network is opt-in. Even when the network is fully rolled out, it will still be limited to those people who consciously choose to opt in. Unless they switch to an opt-out model, the network will never be big enough to be viable. Either my phone was set to with network in high traffic areas only by default, or I forgot that I was asked to opt in. You need the one below it, all areas. I wouldn't say never. People will be buying these trackers, and as they buy these trackers, they will be encountering the opt-in setting. No onboarding that I know of. I had to dig into my settings to turn it on. I think that's a pretty big if. I'd be surprised if they leave it that way. They acknowledge that in time it'll get significantly better, and while all companies are capable of making insanely bad decisions, given that this is a feature they're touting on a lot of new hardware, beyond just trackers, I think it's a win more than an if. Time will tell. Chipotle is releasing a Find My device. Samsung tags are not part of the Android Find My network. Android Find My tags are supposed to work with all phones running Android 9 or higher, regardless of manufacturer. That makes no sense. Samsung doesn't have their own OS. If all Android devices 9 Plus will work on this network, then the Samsung Android devices will too. I know my Samsung tablet has the Find My network on it since it is showing up on my account. The tags are said to only work with Samsung SmartThings tags, only work with Samsung SmartThings devices, but the Gen 2 devices may be opened up to the Google Find My network in the future. https://www.androidpolice.com/samsung-galaxy-smart-tag-2-find-my-d. Device network. Samsung Smart Tags are not native to the Find My network, similar to how the new Pebblebee and Chipolo tags are. The Samsung tags are like tile tags. They rely on their own specific app. The Find My network is meant to leverage all Android phones, not just the ones who have a specific app downloaded. Also, the Find My network is open to any manufacturer that installs the right radio. Pretty sure Samsung is the only one who makes trackers that work with Samsung's location app. I have a Samsung device on the Find My network. I never said that the Samsung tags currently work on that network. The version 2 could potentially work on the new network, they just do not now. Only Samsung knows at this point. Samsung devices running Android 9 Plus 100% work on the Find My network. My Samsung tags are trash. Battery lasts less than a month and very few hits even when it's right in front of you. Samsung are the best. Google can copy some features. Kudos for two things: doing the test, interesting, and putting TLDR at the top. My ability to read anything lengthy is limited. I added the TLDR for all of us. Slightly smiling face. Greater than Plus will be traveling to another country soon that has a 78% market share of Android and only 21.5% market share of Apple. I'm especially interested in how that works out. Really interested to see data on this. Do update, please. You may well be disappointed. Outside the US, only the newer Pixels are on the network at all. Older Pixels aren't yet enrolled and pretty much no third-party manufacturers. It may be 78% market share, but if only 0.5% of that are Pixel users, it's not going to work. Not true. I got it over a month ago and I live in EU, also have a Poco. When they announced the Find My device network was opening up a year ago, I ordered some Chipolo trackers. Google then spent a full year jerking everyone around, so my order sat in limbo. Not Chipolo's fault, of course, but not a promising start. I finally got the Chipolos about a month ago and I set some of them up. I haven't really stress tested them yet, but they've been pretty disappointing. It seems like the only times the tags have updated their locations were when my own phone was the one doing it. That's got some utility, I suppose. Maybe helping me find my car in the parking lot if I forget where I parked, I guess. But my main use case was for something I could put on my dog's collar in case she gets lost, and having a very unreliable tracker for that is not good. I'm hoping that this is still teething problems, but yeah, if you've got the option of AirTags, I'd say go with those for now. Who knows if Google will get its act together? They've not been all that great at rolling out or maintaining products for some years now. This is my exact use case. If my dog escapes, he'll pass tons of single dog walkers, which would allow me to track with an AirTag. But if Google's requirement is 3 hits in the same place, it'll never register. This is just e-waste. I'm really baffled by Google's reasoning here. How does this 3-hit limitation make anyone's security better? The only thing whose location is being reported outside of Google's servers is my tracker, which I want to be found. There's already anti-stalking measures in place for these things that should work regardless of how many phones are detecting them at once. It's also true of losing keys, etc. Heavy traffic areas, like an airport or shopping center, it is quite likely that someone will find them and hopefully hand them in. It's the low traffic areas, trails, small side streets. You really rely on a network like this, somewhere difficult to find and unlikely for someone to spot. Unfortunately, this is the exact scenario that it fails us. I'll have to remember to only lose my keys whilst at the airport or supermarket. Useless. Wait, 3? It's only 2 was my understanding. They just said multiple, never revealed the actual number. Looks like you can manually set it to all areas and not just high traffic areas.
Google is trying to balance efficacy with privacy to avoid the class action privacy lawsuit that Apple is now dealing with. https www.cnet.com/tech/mobile/apple-sued-over-everything-you-need-to-know/ https www.cnet.com/tech/mobile/apple-sued-over-everything-you-need-to-know/
I have 2 tags hidden in my car from Chipweo. One updated 2 minutes ago showing that it's near home. Second one is showing that it is at intersection on the way to my current location. Currently, my car is actually parked outside in a parking lot in the middle of Melbourne CBD, and there is an Android tablet inside that has a SIM card, and that should have updated trackers, plus I drove it to the current location with my phone being on. Are they the Find My Device versions or the previous version which only works with the Chipweo app? Fark, thanks for confirming. I'm also in Melbourne, and was coping with, maybe this is an American problem? I'm way less excited for my Pebblebees to ship now. I also tested at home with my secondary phone opt-in all areas settings and didn't got any location updates, but the way I can remotely turn on sound if it's near my secondary phone but location want updates. I really hope the new Motorola tracker with UWB does significantly better. I'm excited for that product too, but it's also just as dependent on the performance of Google's Find My Device network as the Pebblebee or Chipweo tags. They don't rush release it because of this, and a lot of flagship phones don't have UWB OnePlus 12. I'd like to see someone test the Tile network versus the Google Find My network too. I switched from that one because they never released the UWB version, and now my new phone doesn't even have it. Even my Pebblebee OG, non-Android trackers, seem to work better than Android trackers, TBH. At the end of the day, the Google network is about a month old at this point, and I still don't have it. That's the end of the story. This right here. Until there is over 90% saturation, then there's no point in this. I'm hoping that by August 13th we'll have more answers. Why August 13th particularly? That's when all the new hardware comes out at the Made by Google event. AAA, right? Well, I got a Google News notification which led to an article, https://archive.ph/pa7i, which was basically just a rewrite of this post. Thankfully, they at least credited you. Nice write-up. Thanks for linking that article. Funny enough, I scrolled past the story title in my Pixels news feed, but dismissed it immediately thinking, I guess someone else did it too. Tears of joy. This is what happens when you put Google in charge of decisions.
Google is trying to balance efficacy with privacy to avoid the class action privacy lawsuit that Apple is now dealing with. https www.cnet.com/tech/mobile/apple-sued-over-everything-you-need-to-know/ https www.cnet.com/tech/mobile/apple-sued-over-everything-you-need-to-know/
Very much appreciate this review. Thank you. Hi up you, Chiselplo. You're asking greater than I also noted above that when pulling up the Find My Device page in a web browser on the computer and not on the app, the Pebblebee devices were not present. Why is this? What if you lose your phone and need to track these things in a browser on the computer? You're just out of luck? A fake. Google is using different approaches for online devices like phones and LTE-capable watches and offline devices like accessory tracker tags. For online devices, UL Ready consented to let Google use your exact location data by enabling location services on your mobile device. Locations for online devices are bound to your Google account, and they can be queried from any of your Android phones, tablets with Find My Device app installed, or from Find My Device web app. For offline devices, it's currently not possible to track them from web because of their security design when pairing the accessory tracker tag with your phone, tablet, a private public key PI.
R is created. The public key is transferred to the accessory, and the private key is stored in the key store of your device. The public key of the accessory. https developers.google.com/nearby/fast-pair/specifications/extensions/fmdn hash tilde text equals the %20 fmdn %20 frame %20 carries %28 20 public %20 key %20 used %20 to %20 encrypt %20 location %20 reports is used to encrypt the location of anyone's Android device that receives the accessory's presence. Advertisement. The private key is then necessary and used when you
query your accessory's location to decrypt the location data downloaded by Google Play services. The FMD app in that case is the necessary front end of the Google Play services. As that private key is only stored on that specific device, you can't query the location of your accessories from FMD web app or other devices yet. So, you are only able to locate the tag from that particular device unless you share the tag's location with another user account. In that case, an encrypted version of the private key will be shared to the other person's mobile device over a secure channel, and a common secret necessary to decrypt the shared encrypted private key in memory on runtime in FMD app to decrypt the shared location will be stored on Google's server, so that you are able to revoke the possibility to decrypt your encrypted private key at a later point in time. So, as a workaround, if you have a second device running with a different user account, you could share your accessory with that other account for having a backup to look up the location in case your primary phone is lost. My hope is that in future Google would offer an opt-in to let users upload the private keys of their accessories so that they can be tracked account-wide from your other Android devices or from web. It's rather sad that Google doesn't give better information on how their things are working. Greater than is that private key is only stored on that specific device. You can't query the location of your accessories from FMD web app or other devices yet. So, you are only able to locate the tag from that particular device unless you share the tag's location with another user account. In that case, an encrypted version of the private key will be shared to the other person's mobile device over a secure channel, and a common secret necessary to decrypt the shared encrypted private key in memory. On runtime, an FMD app to decrypt the shared location will be stored on Google's server, so that you are able to revoke the possibility to decrypt your encrypted private key at a later point in time. It makes no sense to me why the private key is simply not synced to all devices linked to the user's account. It's exactly what Apple does. https://support.apple.com/n-l/guide/security/sec6cbc80fd0/1/web/1 with their own network. Greater than this private key pair and the secret are never sent to Apple and D are synced only among the user's other devices in an end-to-end encrypted manner using iCloud keychain. That Google effectively does this with other user accounts, and not your own, is just baffling. It really just comes across that Google's FMD network is half-baked and wasn't really ready to launch when it did. I appreciate the detail in your comment and how well it explained the way their system was designed. So thank you. Thanks for your kind comment. I guess Google simply didn't develop an equivalent to Apple's iCloud keychain yet. At least I'm not aware of a similar solution. Maybe Google will try to catch up with a similar solution in the future, like they now tried with the Find My Device network. And maybe they end up with a G-keyring to securely access all your devices and private data from anywhere, but locks you out from everywhere finally, because it just doesn't work. Grin. Gonna be honest, when you said G-keyring, first thing came to my mind was G-string. It's a missed opportunity if they don't use it, ha ha ha. As a software developer, you wouldn't believe some of the suggestions I get from the team. One guy wanted to encrypt API keys. Tried explaining that the keys are only read on the server and when they are changed in the client. We're using an SSL. Doesn't like that they are stored plain text in the database. For API keys, I've never worked on a project where API keys were encrypted, decrypted. That's the point of API keys. If they're compromised, you just create new ones. Thank you for the explanation. Thumbs up. What about Samsung Smart Tags? I was told they are as reliable as Apple AirTags. Do those work on non-Samsung Android phones? No, Samsung Smart Tag only works on Samsung devices. And that doesn't mean they aren't reliable. They just answered a question. OC's question wasn't about device compatibility. https://www.reddit.com/r/android/s/p7cmjwm1cg. And then someone asked about device compatibility, and the person you responded to answered. Who said anything about reliability? I was asked whether Samsung Smart Tag worked on other Android phones, non-Samsung, and I answered. You can track them on any device since it's on Samsung's website, but you need to initialize setup on a Samsung device. What you were told is true. And on a Galaxy phone with UWB, it can tell you how many feet, meters your tag is from the phone. Just move around and it will triangulate and give you a direction to it. I've tested the Pebblebee clip over the last week. My results are wildly different. I got two, and I've put them in different scenarios. With my Bluetooth off, going anywhere with more than a few people, it shows up within about 5 minutes. Gym, bar, coffee shop, even on the highway. Are yours broken, perhaps? Or are you using them in Pebblebee mode? Mine work as well as my AirTags. Turning your Bluetooth off does not disable the radio completely. Your phone is still looking for and reporting the tag unless you disable Bluetooth scanning. Are you doing that? To improve device experience, apps and services can still scan for nearby devices at any time, even when Bluetooth is off. This can be used, for example, to improve location-based features and services. You can change this in Bluetooth scanning settings. That Pebblebees have a rechargeable battery, right? You can't use one in checked luggage? FAA encourages you to carry on everything lithium-ion, but very few items are actually prohibited. Trackers as a consumer electronic device are not prohibited. See below. What are prohibited are spare, loose lithium-ion batteries and power banks. Most consumer personal electronic devices containing batteries are allowed in carry-on *** and check baggage **, including but not limited to cell phones, smartphones, data loggers, PDAs, electronic games, tablets, laptop computers, cameras, camcorder, watches, calculators, etc. This covers typical dry cell batteries, lithium metal, and lithium-ion batteries for consumer electronics, A, AAA, C, D, button cell, camera batteries, laptop batteries, etc. Spare, uninstalled, ** lithium-ion and lithium metal batteries, * including power banks and cell phone battery charging cases * must be carried in * carry-on baggage only. When a carry-on bag is checked at the gate or at planeside, all spare lithium batteries and power banks must be removed.
Ved from the bag and kept with the passenger in the aircraft cabin. The battery terminals must be protected from short circuit. Pack safe for passengers, Federal Aviation Administration. FAA.gov, https www.fa.gov/hazmat/packsafe. PackSafe, portable electronic devices containing batteries, Federal Aviation Administration. FAA.gov, https www.fa.gov/hazmat/packsafe/portable-electronic-devices-with-batteries. PackSafe, lithium batteries, Federal Aviation Administration. FAA.gov,
https://www.fa.gov/hazmat/packsafe/lithium-batteries. Do you think AirTags don't use batteries? Not rechargeable. Neither do the Chipolo 1 point. The Card 1 uses a rechargeable battery too. Why would it matter if it's rechargeable? They'd both fall under the FAA regulations if they weren't installed in something. AirTags use lithium metal batteries. Pebblebee uses lithium-ion. Regardless, neither likely hit the weight limit and wouldn't be considered spare anyway, so neither are restricted. Why can't you use it in checked luggage? Presumably because you're not allowed to transport lithium-ion batteries, because phones' batteries were exploding a few years ago. Great test. Very thorough, thumbs up, light skin tone. I mean, Google is known for slew rollouts. I still don't have access to the new network in the UK. For me, I'm just happy to have phone and wallet tracking that doesn't involve downloading a separate app. I've never managed to misplace my keys, knock on wood, outside of the house. I just keep a tracker on them so I can figure out where I've placed them around the house. This needs a YouTube. Who will do useless video that not have any updates? There is one video already with Chipolo, same shit. https://www.youtube.com/watch?v equals fqng1 jeggle 0 unt equals 426s closing square bracket opening parenthesis https://www.youtube.com/watch?v equals fqng1 jeggle 0 unt equals 426s closing parenthesis https://preview.red.it/368dr6 isjuf1.png (width equals 583 and format equals png and auto equals webp and s equals 5987 bb51880213335 e35d24 e311f302 cfed 0bd2. This how it works in Israel with secondary phone at home. Thanks up. Pre-order canceled. You saved me from wasting a bunch of money. It might be worthwhile down the road. Maybe weeks. Maybe months, maybe a year. But for now, I'll throw these two trackers in the drawer and continue on with the reliable Apple AirTags. Sure, but you should never purchase a product for what it might be in the future. Purchase for what it does now. Of course, it's horrible. It's Google you're talking about. Funny, I'm doing a similar test this week in my wife's suitcase on an Alaskan cruise. Been very comparable in performance of the Pebblebee device. Maybe your next door neighbor is doing something similar and is constantly supplying your devices with updates. I have a theory about why it reverted back to home all the time. Firstly, as a find the thing I misplaced tracker, it makes sense that the thing you lost is in the location your phone was last connected to it. The estimated location initially provided by the network is what people are expecting, but I think that once the tracker triggers an unknown tracker alert on a third party's phone, then the location data that device reported gets removed, hence reverting to the last good location. It's just a theory, but would be in line with Google's aggressive privacy choices for FMD.
There is an alternate simple theory that I set up over at Chipolo's subreddit, https://chipolo/r/chipolo/comments/1j4l7/comments/l9ac30b/ UTM_source equals share and UTM_medium equals web3x and UTM_name equals web3x CSS and UTM_term equals 1 and UTM_content equals share_button. Some time ago, where several other people reported a similar problem. Greater than I am suspecting a combination of one of Google's privacy features and a bug. Or call it missing feature. In the FMD app, the error reports sound like when opening the FMD app. The app
tries to pull any location updates from Google's servers. If there is one, good, it's presented on the map. Obviously, this location is not stored in the FMD app's data, but only nearby locations are stored when your phone is in contact with the tracker. That would then result in what you experienced. If you open the FMD app, the app is polling for any updates from the server, but the data there has already been deleted. https://security.googleblogs.com/2024/find-my-device-network-security-pr.
privacy protections. HTML hash. Tilde. Text equals minimizing %20 network %20 data, for %20 the %20 tag. Or the server just owns it respond. Due to how often you are allowed to request a location update. https security.googleblogs.com/2024/find-my-device-security-privacy-protections.html hash. Tilde. Text equals the %20 network %20 also %20 throttles %20 how %20 frequently %20 the %20 owner %20 of %20 a %20 Bluetooth %20 tag %20 can %20 request %20 and %20 updated %20 location %20 for %20 the %20 tag. Then it would take the last saved location stored from your device.
Ease data, which was the last time your device had direct contact with the tracker. Greater than Google should extend the time for how long location updates are stored on the server and be sure that location updates retrieved from the server are properly stored in the app's data store. Greater than I'd recommend to send a bug report via the feedback option inside the FMD app. Wow, every journal is wording and reporting your post. I'm not a Google fanboy or anything. I'm kind of like a gizmo geek, and when something catches my eye, I read way too much into it. This is only a $30 item, and I've wasted too much time reading reviews and analyzing it for the last year, but that's just me. I've ordered mine, Chipolo, and I know I will probably be disappointed for quite a while until the network gets better. Hopefully. But if the above test was done with any other tracker like tile trackers, which I have had for a couple of years, which have been around for 10 years, that's 10 years to grow the network, you probably wouldn't have seen one ping from them for this whole trip. If this test was done with Samsung tags, I've also had for a couple of years, you would have seen everything. Probably every 10 minutes you get a ping, and you'll also have a history of 7 days. The reason AirTags and Samsung tags work so well is because they are phone-based. AirTags are really OS-based, but let's just assume it's phone-based because you're locked in with the ecosystem of iOS. Samsung tags only work with Samsung phones, and there's a lot of Samsung phones out there to make a large network. Of course, if I had an iPhone, I would get the AirTag, because that works with all iPhones. But if I have an Android phone made by whoever, not Samsung, there is no good tag to use it. See the next paragraph. The FMD network is the best option, and hopefully it gets better. The rest of the tags out there like Tile, etc. app-based. You have to be running the app that comes with the tracker, and only the other people with the app installed on their phones will work to track the item. And these tags work fine for the user who's using them. So for instance, if I leave my keys somewhere as soon as they disconnect from my phone, I'll know where they were left. And maybe in the next 10 to 30 days, it might ping from somebody else's phone. I totally agree with most of these comments that Google has some work to do to fix this. I'm still crossing my fingers that it will be better in the next coming months when more people have them in their hands. Google will probably have some changes to make. If the network is fixed, these tags will be better than Samsung tags. And maybe even AirTags. Only time will tell. Let's everybody remember this is a $30 item. It's meant basically to find your something in your house if you've lost something nearby. It's not meant to track something around the world when you mail it. It's also not meant to be a live GPS tracker. It's meant to ping every once in a while out in the network, and hopefully you'll find what you're looking for. So, in conclusion, yes, Google has some fixing to do. And remember what you're buying. It's a $30 item, and it should work with all Google phones eventually. And hopefully the network gets better. Look, at the end of the day, we shouldn't compromise on having a good experience, just because Google doesn't know what they are doing. Apple AirTag is also $30, has UWB and a good network. Smart tags are like $22 on sale, have UWB, and a good network. Seriously, in the US, the best bet would be for Samsung to open the network to any phone with Smurthing's app installed. Who can trust Google to keep this thing running? They have made so many poor decisions already. I agree it should definitely work. I haven't received mine yet, so I don't have an opinion on whether it's good or bad yet. The two trackers that you're mentioning, and everybody talks about being good, are the Apple AirTag and Samsung Tag. As I said, I have this, and it does work great. The AirTag was designed by Apple to work on Apple's Find My network, and you have to have an iPhone to use it. 50% of the American population don't. And in other countries, it's a much bigger percentage of Android. The Samsung Tag was designed by Samsung, and only to work on Samsung phones. If you have an Android phone that's not Samsung, you're out of luck there too. And for all those other trackers that use their own apps, are not an option or not a good option because they don't really work. Pointless to talk about the Apple AirTag, because people with Android phones can't use it. So what's the point of talking about it? The conversation should be about any tags that work on Android. And yes, Samsung has a good market share, but it's not 100% market share. So there has to be a tracker for all Android. People who use Android phones are not going to switch to iPhones just because they have a good tracker. That should be the conversation. What Google did is open up its network to third-party trackers. It didn't make its own. So there might be growing pains. As to Find My Device app, I've never really had to use it to find my phone. But when I look for my phone, I see where it is. I can lock my phone. I can erase my phone. I've never tested the erase part because I don't want to start over on my phone. So the app currently does what it's supposed to do. So, in conclusion, there's no good option for Android users that are not Samsung. Agreed. The market share of non-Samsung Android phones is so small in the US. Those users ought to buy Tiles, other third-party trackers. PPL are going to keep bringing up AirTags and smart tags since both were able to roll out and just work. Where SmartThings failed is having third-party trackers. They only have a few. But Apple has a healthy ecosystem of third-party devices. And you don't need 100% market share for these things to work. YouTube videos show how strong Tiles network is. With Google hardware, smart tag, or software, AirTag, you can make a functional network. The issue is Google has failed on both fronts, with only Motorola Tag having UWB, and needed multiple phones to ping an item. I honestly don't trust Tiles. They sold themselves to Life 360 and they are sketchy with data safety. I only have them still because I haven't found a good alternative. And AirTags are not that expensive and they worked on release. Not this BS Google is doing delaying the product and then it's shit. I am starting to doubt all the people who said Apple was delaying the release. AirTags were designed by Apple and released by Apple when Apple thinks they were ready, and the same goes for the Samsung tag. Google just opened its network to third-party tags. It didn't make its own tag and release it when it thought it was ready. So for this reason, I think it will get better soon. Also, the test was pointless to use an AirTag, because if you have an Android phone, you're not going to get an AirTag, and you're not going to change to an iPhone just because of a tag. That's sort of my point above. If you have an Android phone, you need a tag for Android phone. Not a comparison with iPhone. Think about it this way: if the Android Find My Device network was better and the tracking was better in this test above, would people be saying they're dropping their iPhones to buy an Android phone just because of a $30 tracker? People who have an iPhone will usually stick with staying with an iPhone. People have Android phones in need and option, and none of the third-party apps, tags will do the job. They're all pretty crappy. And if FMDN gets a few tweaks, it will be much better. Hopefully. Android and iPhone compete for market share. You absolutely can compare AirTags and the Android equivalents because they are from competing ecosystems. One ecosystem has working trackers and the other doesn't. Of course, you can compare them. There's some validity to having that data, but it's an unfair comparison because it's too early for FMDN. So the data is skewed anyway, because FMDN not fully rolled out to all phones. It's like comparing the current AirTag to a Tile tracker on week 1 of release of the Tile network. And I know I pick on Tile because it's the only one I can think of right now. The network is not big enough to do a fair comparison. What I'm saying in my previous post is it doesn't matter to most people if you compare iOS and Android tags, because if you have an Android, you don't give it at $# what iOS is doing. You just want to know what the best option for Android is. No sane person would switch from Android to Apple for AirTags. Now, if Apple released an AirTag app for Android, Find My Device would be DOA. Goddamn it, Google. You fucked it up again. GFM is mostly opt-in for right now and mostly Bluetooth. In about 2 years, it will be relabeled as more OEMs adopt UWB in their flagship and mid-tier phones and make it part of the new device experience when setting up a phone, where most people just hit yes on those screens. At that point, it will probably be far more accurate than FMI, since Apple can't possibly ship more iPhones than total number of Android phones sold. There also could be a limit in place for anti-stalking measures they will have in place. Basically, this version of GFM is new and limited, probably to make sure it works across the board before opening the floodgates. We're probably assessing too early. Then why release it? I imagine this is going to get canned because soon no one is using it. Just another thing that is going to be killed by Google, because there's something called staggered release. It's a sensitive product, and rather than go the Apple route of giving you the whole pie on release and letting stalkers get the best of it, they are being very cautious. Also, for features like this, you often have a chicken and egg problem. Manufacturers don't want to pay the extra 12 cents per unit to include UWB, and they won't unless there's demand for it. This is one of the many uses for UWB, by allowing more people to have devices that would benefit, and that market trend may be enough to convince them. They also can't force every manufacturer user to turn it on automatically all at once, or there would be huge ramifications, at least among the public. They haven't even mostly advertised this feature yet. It's really only the pro users that knows it's here. I'm very doubtful this will get canned, seeing as it's been in flight for a long time, and this new set of features makes the product vastly more useful. Let's check back in 6 months. The holiday season will bring a ton of new devices online, and many of them will have UWB and probably an onboarding screen to enable a GFM. Make the Android network forced or even smuggle it in without its users knowing. Please do this if you want a strong, efficient network. This is going to get Google sued so badly, they'll go bankrupt. Always tell people what they are doing. That's like the basics of government regulation. Worth revisiting in like 3 years after they've finally finished the staged rollout or something. Smart Tag 2 is a great one. Damn, that sucks. I have a bunch of Samsung Smart Tags and they work fairly well, but have been looking at Google Find My add an alternative, less locked tracker network. I wonder if someone had done a similar test between Samsung and Apple's tags. I'd be curious about a Samsung Smart Tag. I use one and it regularly gets picked up when my cat goes exploring. This is unfortunate. I just purchased one. Hopefully things get better. I've noticed my wife's location on her phone, Samsung S22, being massively out of sync lately. Similar issues reverting to an old location after it updated somewhere else. Assuming this is related, this is to be expected because of the nature of each company's network. There are more Apple phones in the Apple network than there are Androids in Google's. If the driver used an Android, then you wouldn't have had real-time updates on the road. It goes both ways. That said, prove any of this is true. Show your videos, your setup, your evidence. Somebody could write up whatever findings they want in this format. Is there a chance a couple drivers were iPhone carriers? This would work well for the AirTag, and the phones were most likely plugged and charging, aiding the network. Thank you so much for testing smiling face, smiling face, smiling face. That's the good thing about Apple. They turn it on as default without asking the user if they want to participate. Thinking face. I have no plans on getting any of these trackers, unless people stop using tile trackers. But I opted into the All Areas network now that I know Google didn't do that automatically. Lots of valid points, but does miss one thing. Rollout so far is pretty much zero outside the Pixel phone range, so only a small minority of Android phones are on the network. I don't think it's around on Samsung or any brand except Pixel, and even then only newer Pixels. This obviously massively reduces the number of devices that listen. The network may become useful when all Android phones have it. That might be this year, or not. Otherwise, yes, the high traffic only is going to make the N at work night on useless. Lose something hiking on a quiet road or a street and it might never ping. It's a terrible, terrible implementation. Very bad. It shows once again that Google can't code something perfect from the start. I'm curious if the forgetting is the thing Google talked about with not sharing a location at your home or work. It updates, then later realizes that it was from whatever phone logged its work and forgets. US is Apple land. In other countries where more Android devices are around, the result will be different. In Israel, low traffic area, I haven't got one ping, while Samsung Tag got every 30 minutes in same room with other my phone with same account, so I can ring the tag if other phone with same account nearby but ping location not. https://youtube.com/shorts/1.2jfg4np4 closing square bracket opening parenthesis https://youtube.com/shorts/1.2jfg4np4 closing parenthesis. Google is trying to balance efficacy with privacy to avoid the class action privacy lawsuit that Apple is now dealing with. https://www.cnet.com/tech/mobile/apple-sued-over-airtags-privacy-everything-you-need-to-know/. I don't know, Samsung have location history and undetectable tag.